Good evening, everyone. Today's session is on conditional statements. So, what we have done, like earlier, we have understood about like what are lists, what are tuples. Now, there is a basically condition when we have to have uh, putting the taking the decisions, putting some conditions in our program basically in Python, because Python is very simple and easy to use language. Here we need not have to write so much syntax, or we need not have to know everything. I may say that anyone can start with Python, right? The only thing is they should have they should have simple concepts, like they should have some specific knowledge about any programming language, right? So let us understand the conditional statements. It is very very important when we talk about conditional statements. So in Python, we use usually if statement for taking the decisions. You might be using if multiple times, you might be using if ladder, or you might be using the if elif statements, right? So let us start with that, like how to use if statements. Suppose like taking an example of this scenario. Hey guys, did you hear the amazing news? No, what is the news? For World Health Day onwards, each student will have to run extra rounds after morning assembly on the basis of his BMI. So mine is 27 and I will not have to run any rounds. What about you? That's great. My BMI is 20. I don't know how many rounds I have to run. I heard the news too. Mine is 31 and I will have to run 2 rounds daily. So basically, based on some conditions, like your if your BMI level is this, then you need to take this much number of rounds. If your BMI level is this, your then you need to take this many rounds. So this depends on what is your level. So based on your conditions, you decide like what to do, right? So these are some conditions, these are some scenarios where you need to make the decisions. So there come situations in life when we need to make some decisions, and based on these decisions we need to decide what should we do next. Similar situations arise in programming also, where we need to make some decisions, and based on these decisions we will execute the next block of code. So here we have suppose I want to I want to make any decision, and I want to decide like whether to go with this or not. Now if I'm going with this, then this should be possible, right? So making decisions, right? The main part is when you take the decision, when you are making the decisions in programming, we have that particular direction of flow of the program execution. So here we have, I told you, we have if statement, we can have if elif statements, and we can have if ladder as well. So here the first part is if statement. So what do you mean by if statement? The if statement is used to check a condition. If the condition is true, then we run a block of statements. And if the condition is false, then the next statement in the program will be executed. So this is how it is going to work. So suppose I would say there would be some condition, like if there is some test condition, right? There would be some test condition, and then you might be having some number of statements. So suppose I would be saying like if your condition, and if this condition is true, then certain statements will be executed. It is like this, right? And here whatever you want to execute, whatever you want within this scope of this if statement, you need to mention it with the indentation part. If these statements would be coming under if block, that means indentation to be maintained. Otherwise it is not going to be taken. So here the program evaluates the test expression and will execute statements only if the test expression is true. So if your expression is true, if your condition is true, then only the certain number of statements will be executed. Otherwise, if your statement is false, then nothing will be executed, right? So note, in Python, the body of the if statement is indicated by the indentation. I told you, if you are putting a number of statements within this if block, then this indentation is to be maintained, right? If it is coming over here, it is not in the block of if statement. So it is mandatory to maintain the indentation part. Body starts with an indentation and the first unindented line of line marks the end. So suppose you have written some condition over here and I have maintained the indentation, like print this, another line, another line, another line. Now you put the another line over here. So it means this is your last statement of the if block. Automatically it understands. No need to have like no need to mention it within unindented part. So unindented part automatically the compiler understand it is not coming under the if block, right? Python interprets non-zero value as true and none and zero interpreted as false. So always remember this thing, whenever we have zero, that is treated as a false condition, and if it is 1, it basically representing the true conditions, right? So Python if statement flowchart. So here we have the test expression, right? And if it is true, then this body will be executed, and if it is false, then the next statement in the block will be executed, right? So here, what is that? What is this? This is the operation of if statement, how if statements work. Right. So how it works? It is my condition. If my condition is true, then certain line of code will be executed, and it is how to make the body out of it by maintaining the indentation, right? And if your condition turns false, that means your next line of code will be executed in the program. Let us take one example. You have this thing. Program, if the number is positive, we print an appropriate message. Like suppose if you are taking a condition over here, so num, you have taken a number that is a positive value. So I told you, if there is a number that is any number, that means your positive one. So 3 is greater than 0, true. Then you put some indentation, and over here it is the statement that needs to be printed on the screen, that is num. Num is a positive number. Num is a positive number, right? And this statement that is not following any indentation, that is not coming under the block of if statement. That is not coming under the block of if statement, right? Another part, you have again changed the variable value, that is num is equal to -1. Now your condition turns -1 is greater than 0, false. So this part will not be executed, it will directly jump to this statement, and this statement is not the part of any of the if statement. So here 3 is a positive number will be printed, and after this we have another statement in the program, that is this one. This would be printed, and after this would be printed, because here your condition turns to false. So these are the 3 statements that needs to be printed on the screen, right? So over here, like, you can understand how we are taking it in a program, right? So in the above example, num is the test condition. The body of it is executed only if it evaluates to true. So always remember this thing, when your condition is true, then your body of that if statement will be executed. Otherwise, it is not going to be executed. Right? And if your num is equal to -1, if your num is equal to -1, that means your body part is not executed because your condition turns to false. So what does it mean? If this condition is true, then your body will be executed. If this condition is false, then it directly jumps to next statement in the program. So over here, if my condition is true, then this number of lines will be executed. If it is false, then it will move to the next part in the program, right? So over here you need to understand like how it does it work. So let us move to the next part, Python if else statement. Syntax of if else statement. Let us see else if statements. Now suppose sometimes we have if else, directly we can use it, and very important point is this: whenever you use if statement, you have some condition over here, then you put colon, yes, it is very mandatory in Python. So next syntax is if else. Like suppose you have condition, if it is turned to true, then this part will be executed. If it is turns to false, then this part will be executed. So over here you may see, like based on your condition, the statements, like at the same time both are not executed. If this condition is true, then only this part will be executed. If this condition is false, then only this part will be executed, right? So the if else statement evaluates test exhibit and will execute body of if only when the condition is true. Otherwise, this is not be executed in the program. So always remember this thing, like whenever you use the if else statements, the if else statement in the program, always remember this thing: either this part will be executed or that part will be executed. At the same time, both of them cannot be executed, right? One of the block will be executed. Let us see how it works. This would be my condition, right? If it turns to true, then this body will be executed. If it turns to false, then this part will be executed, right? It works like this. So here, over here, we have a program to check whether the person is eligible to vote or not. We can have an age variable which we are taking from input from the user. So here by default it takes strings. So you need to convert it into integer. You need to convert it into integer. So here you have age, then integer, and then put it within input. So over here, like whatever your input statement is, it needs to be converted into integer, and this integer value will be the age variable is holding the integer value. Otherwise, it is your string value, right? If you are taking any input from the user, it would be a string value. So no need to have like this. It is very necessary to have convert into an integer value. Then only you are going to check it for the condition part. Like how to compare a string with a number. Can you compare it ABCD with a number? No. So you need to convert this number, this age, into number, right? If you have some 10 or 20, then you compare it with any other number. So that's why it is mandatory. That's why it is very mandatory to convert it into a number itself, right? Let us see the next step. So over here we have if age is greater than equal to 18 colon, then print this part. Again indentation is to be maintained, else you put colon, and then indentation is to be maintained and you print the second message. So this is how you have the conditions over here. You have some condition, you have true part, and you have the false part as well, right? So next we have is Python if statements. Now suppose it might be possible you need to have multiple conditions. You have multiple conditions in the program. Like if this condition is true, if this condition is true, if this condition is true. So if any one of the condition is true, then only it is going to be executed on the program. Like suppose you have multiple conditions. Suppose this is my if statement, this is my first condition, then you have certain block of statement. Then elif, you have test expression, then you have multiple condition. Then if you have another elif, you can put any number of elifs, and then after that this is my default statement for all the ifs. Like if all these ifs are there, if it would be true in any of the case, if this would be true, then any of them will be executed. But if in case of none of them will be true, then false part, else part will be executed. Now how it works, let us see. Now suppose you have if, again you have certain if, again you have another if. Now none of the if statement is true, then only it is going to the false part, that is the body of else. Right, first it checks for if, then again it checks for another if, then it again is checks for false part. Right, so over here you need to understand like how we have a, like suppose let us take one example of grade of a student. Right, so here we have marks, we have assigned it through 60. If this marks is greater than 75, then print you get a grade. LF, if your marks is greater than 60, yes, so you have two conditions. If your marks is 75, greater than 75, or if your marks is 60. Right, otherwise if it is not over here, then only it is moving to the else part. If both the condition are false, then only we have the else part. This loop will be executed. This statement will be executed. Right, let us take one more example over here, like when we have nested if else if letter. Now here we have in this program we will be input and check whether the number is positive, negative or 0. So here we have taken one number and we have converted into a float value. Then checking out if the number is greater than 0, come into the next part. If the number is 0, then put it 0. If the number is not 0, then put it as positive because it is greater than equal to 0. Right? Then else part. If your number is not greater than equal to 0, then it would be a negative number. Right? That means else part will be executed, that is negative number is there on your screen. So when we have executed this program, you have taken a number 5. So this here over here, if I am taking the number as 5, let us see. So I have taken num is greater than 5 is greater than equal to 0. Yes, true. This condition is true. Next, 5 is equal to 0. No. This condition turns false, else it is a positive number. So here over here we have the positive number. Right, again understand for the next condition. Suppose my number is -1. -1 is greater than equal to 0. No, so directly coming to this part, it is going to print my negative number. Right, so next part, last part, 0. If I am going to take my, if the number is equal to 0, yes, and if it is equal to 0, it is going to print 0 over here. So this is how we have if, elif and if else. Might be possible there are a number of things that we have always remember the syntax part, because whenever we used to have this part, like suppose you have multiple statement in this condition, right? So you have condition your 75, or you might be having condition 60. It is when your condition turns to true. So here over here you have some marks over here. 60. 60 is greater than 75, right? False. Else if 60 is greater than 60, you have not taken the equal to part. If it is equal to part, then B grade will be assigned. But if you have taken only the greater than, so 60 is greater than 60, it would be treated as false. Why? Because you have not taken this condition greater than equal to 60. If you are putting, if it is greater than equal to 60, then it will be B grade. But you have taken the condition as if it is greater than 60. So 60 is not greater than 60. So it is falling under C grade, right? So this is how we are checking the conditions in the using if and elif ladder, right? And over here, like we have presented it, let me take the 18 value. So let's see what happens if we take the 18 as a value. So over here we have taken the input as 18, right? So 18 is greater than equal to 18, right? Yes. 18 is greater than equal to, yes, it is equal to. So you are eligible to vote. So always remember, when you have this comparison operator, right? So equal to sign means if you are taking two values, A is greater than B, it will only going to check whenever the condition will be true when A is greater than. But A, if you write like this, A is greater than equal to B, this is equal to. That means what? If it is 10, you might be having 10, then this would be possible and it will be executed. Your condition turns to true in this case, right? So hope you have understood like why we use if, elif and if else statements in a program, right? So sometimes it might be possible like you want to have multiple conditions. It might be possible like you when you have multiple conditions. So in that case, it is like you may use if elif later. Like I can show you one program. We have done this example also when we have multiple if statements. Yeah. So over here what we have, we can have other statements too. Like suppose here you have put one condition. You can put elif marks is greater than 50. Marks is greater than 40. Right. And then you take else part as C grade. So yes, you can take it. How is it possible? With the help of elif statements. With the help of elif statements. The only thing is with if part, like when you take the if part, right? In if part, the only thing is if you are not taking the else part, the false part is not going to be shown on the screen. The false part is not going to be shown on the screen. So it's better to use the else part also. Else parts will give you actually the false, like when your condition will be false, it is going to show you like your condition is false. Now you are in uh, else block, right? So it is very important. And let me tell you about another thing that is uh, again in later on we will be talking about in my coming sessions. I will be telling you about for loop and while loop. So they are pre-tested loops in Python. We don't have, we usually have do while statements also, that is a post tested loop, but in Python we usually use for loops or while loops. So for loops and while loops are basically, again we have in this part we have three parts in my for loop and while loop. We will be like I will be giving you one more session on like how to use for loop or while loop in our program, right? So hope you have understood like how we have implemented if block or how we have actually used the if else if statements when you have to take the decisions, when you have multiple conditions, then only you are going to use the for loop and if loop, if statement, or you may say elif statement, or you may say if and else if statement, right? So always remember the syntax before using that, right? And very important thing is indentation. If you are having some block, like here the body is written, so always remember why this is given as in space, because this would be coming under this block if it is given with the help of indentation. Yes, the else part you have to give the indentation, then only it is coming under the else part. Otherwise, normally if you use this thing, it is not going to happen, right? So always remember, it will happen only and only if you put it within the that particular block, right? If you use the indentation, right? And there is no need to put the curly braces when you are using the Python, right? So here, if the condition is false, body of else is executed. I told you, if your condition is not true over here, then directly the else part will be executed, and indentation is used to separate the blocks, right? Always remember, if you are using the indentation, it would be coming under the upper statement. Like if it is a else statement, or if it is a if statement, if condition statement, so that would be coming under this thing, right? So, and if you have multiple conditions, you might be having multiple conditions, so you might be using if elif statements, right? So you have one statement over here, you might be using some other statement, like this would be my one statement, again another statement, again another statement. If all these turns to none of them were like matching, or none of them will come to true, then your last part, that is false part, will be executed. That comes under the else part. So always remember, else is the false part of the first statement, if statement, right? Else part is the false part of the if statement. So if you have if statement in your program, always check it, use it with the else part also, because else part will give you the false part of the condition, right? So over here, like you have seen, there are two conditions, both have not matched, then only it is going to check for the false part, then only it is going to the false part. Like none of the conditions met true, then the false part is only a single part, so false part will be executed over there, right? So this is how we use the if statements and elif statements and if ladder, right? So hope you have understood the session, hope you like the session. Thank you.